Good to see you. Yes, sir.
All right. Good evening, everyone. It is Tuesday, August 16th at 5:40 p.m., and we are calling this regular meeting of the Wake County Board of Education to order. I want to welcome those of you that are here and those of you that are watching at home to observe the Board of Education as we conduct our official business. I'd like to take a moment to highlight Board Policy 2310, which states Wake County Board of Education meetings are conducted for the purpose of carrying on the official business of the school system. The public is cordially invited to attend board meetings to observe the board as it conducts its official business. Persons who willfully interrupt, disrupt, or cause disturbances at an official meeting may be directed to leave by the presiding officer. Members of the audience should show respect for speakers by refraining from loud comments or other disruptions. Disruptions by any person or persons of a public meeting will be subject to action in accordance with General Statute 143-318.17. All board members, the superintendent, and our board attorney are present. With that, we have a quorum, and if you will join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all. We begin with our information items, and that starts with comments from our superintendent, Ms. Kathy Moore.
Good evening. Congratulations to Sandy Tyndall, a health educator at the Wake Early College of Health and Sciences, who has been named a finalist for the North Carolina Career and Technical Education Teacher of the Year Award. The award is given by the North Carolina Center for the Advancement of Teaching. Ms. Tyndall is beginning her 4th year at the Wake Early College of Health and Sciences. She also taught at East Wake High School for 8 years. She teaches Health Sciences 1 and 2, as well as Biomedical Technology. She is also an advisor to the school's award-winning Health Occupation Students of America Club, HOSA, as well as a mentor to beginning teachers. Principal Lisa Cummings says Sandy's love for education is evident in her tireless work to ensure students are engaged in their learning and prepared for the next steps in their health science path. One of our strategic plan core beliefs states that we are committed to challenging students with relevant, rigorous, and meaningful learning each day. The hands-on learning, real-world job skills offered by our early colleges and CTE programs are perfect examples of that core belief in action. And it takes dedicated instructors like Ms. Tyndall to help students attain the knowledge and skills they need to excel in college and career. The North Carolina Career and Technical Education Teacher of the Year will be named at the NCAT conference in October. Best of luck, Ms. Tyndall. Another example of our students successfully applying their learning to the real world took place last month at the annual Envirothon Competition hosted by the National Conservation Foundation. A team from Enloe Magnet High School, competing against 40 teams from the United States and Canada, notched a top 5 finish to take home a $2,000 scholarship. The team consisted of 5 Enloe students: Veronica Chias, Felicia Yan, Shreya Reddy, Pranvi Vashit, and Cynthia Wang. Students were tested on their knowledge of various ecological topics and presented a 20-minute mock proposal to a panel of judges about the planning of an environmental-friendly landfill. To prepare for the challenge, the students spoke with local industry professionals and even took field trips to better understand the logistics and environmental science behind the project. Clearly, their hard work paid off. Congratulations to these outstanding students. Finally, this evening, I had the pleasure of attending a luncheon last week with the 114 Participate Learning Ambassador teachers who will be teaching in our schools this year. Participate teachers hail from all over the world and are trained to integrate global content into existing curriculum. 38 of these teachers are brand new to us this year. The luncheon included facilitated discussion sessions around best practices in our schools. This year's 38 new Participate Learning teachers are from such countries as Colombia, the United Kingdom, the Bahamas, Argentina, Costa Rica, China, Venezuela, South Africa, Jamaica, Peru, the Dominican Republic, Honduras, Chile, and Guatemala. Our ultimate goal as a school district is to prepare students for productive citizenship. This includes exposing them to a variety of perspectives and experiences to prepare them for success in a global economy. We have partnered with Participate for many years to help us give our students those invaluable learning experiences. My best wishes to those 114 international teachers and their students for a school year full of new discoveries and broadened horizons. And that concludes my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent Moore. Before I begin, I want to just extend my condolences to our Wake County Sheriff's Department. They experienced the loss of their colleague, Deputy Ned Bird, in a tragic incident, and want to let them know that we are keeping them in our thoughts. I'd like to thank our staff, faculty, and administrators for being here with us as they continue their first quarter or as they get ready to walk through the door of their bus, office, or classroom. We're about to open traditional schools before our next board meeting, and that is no small feat. And we know that it's been an interesting couple of years, and I wish everyone on traditional calendar a great start to the school year and lots of positivity. I had the pleasure of visiting our two new schools in District 8, Herbert Akins Road Middle School, which was in full swing. They are a year-round middle school, and carpool was smooth, the lights are bright, the students are in the building, and it was just incredible to see all the work that had been done to personalize that school so that students felt that it was their place when they really just began in early July. And then I was able to head over to Apex Friendship Elementary, which is getting ready for teachers and students to come into the building. And they always seem like nail biters, but it will be done. And it will be very interesting to see how carpool goes on that 3-school campus the first week. So if you are in the friendship community, I'm going to reiterate, as our principals already have, some patience and making sure that as you move through carpool, we all remember we're going to the same place. Vice Chair Hegarty.
Thank you, Chair Mahaffey. I'll keep my remarks brief. I do want to welcome back all of our early college students. We've had our first days, and we had our very first day of the Wake Early College of Information and Biotechnologies, Morrisville's first high school. And so everyone was so excited to grace the doors of that program. We've heard so many incredible things about it. I had someone from Dallas, Texas, actually call me up asking questions about it, really excited about what we were doing here in Wake County. So kudos to them, and kudos to Principal Stotzenberg. Also had the opportunity to work together with some of our partners that are participating in the Wake Together program. Since you will hear more about that later in the agenda, I won't talk too much about it, but it really is encouraging to see so many people in our community willing to come out and rally around, this cause of helping our students. Our human resources staff, a special shout out to them. I got to attend an opportunity where they had their recruiting booths up, recruiting bus drivers, instructional assistants, and really going out there to work all hours, going overtime to help us with our staffing needs. We'll hear a little bit more about that later on. And finally, I want to thank UNC Rex for their Stuff the Bus school supply drive. I got to see Ms. Carter and Ms. Cash out there, and I know Ms. Waters came by a little bit later. They raised a whole school bus full of school supplies for Wake Ed Partnerships Tools for Schools program. This is something they've been doing for several years, and we really appreciate the support of UNC Rex Hospitals. Thank you.
Thank you. And just a technical correction, the Wake Together program was in our work session.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Superintendent Moore's got us covered. Ms. Kushner.
Good evening, and thank you. To reiterate my comments, my colleagues' comments, welcoming our students back to the traditional school year, and all those who are already getting back to school. I think this is a year where we're all reassembling from virtual school, a lot of students coming back. And I think it's important for us just to take special care during this beginning, that there's always a lot of anxiety around the start of the new school year. So if we all, from the board on down, just take special care with our students and probably that a little bit extra anxiety about starting a new school year this year. So my thoughts are with all students, all educators across the district. And wanted to add my absolute congratulations to the YMCA, to Tom Oxholm, and all of the folks that have made Wake come together, our partners at the Boys and Girls Club and the other partners. It's just going to be critically important to support our students in every way this school year. So thanks to them for making that happen.
Dr. Martin.
Thank you. Again, I too extend all the best to traditional calendar schools, staff and students and families as that begins. It has been fun to sort of see online posting all of our graduates as they go off to college, because colleges are starting before the traditional calendar school. But as we discussed a little bit in work session, part of our strategic plan is part of the whole purpose is once you graduate, what do you go on to? And so it's been exciting to see the students going on to a variety of colleges. In that line, I had a wonderful opportunity to meet with the students at Wake STEM just down the road here. And sort of with my dual hats as college professor and the Board of Education, discussed with the juniors and seniors, what to expect as you take some college courses instead of high school courses. What's the difference? Had a really great discussion with the students. At the Wake Young Women's Leadership Academy, it was fun to participate in their Yellow Rose ceremony. It's a great ceremony where they welcome all of the new young women to that academy, creating owls, outstanding women leaders. Very strong event. A number of us were able to attend the dinner with the Cary Chamber of Commerce. The partnerships that we've been able to build with quite a number of the Chamber of Commerces around the county, I think are really important and worth highlighting. I think increasingly it is clear the extent to which public education really is a foundation to economic and community development. It's highlighted that company after company moving to the area recognizes that the quality public education that people can access is a huge benefit, whereas many places in the country, people, to get the same quality of education you get in the Wake County Public School System, you'd be paying private tuition. That differential makes a big difference when you're recruiting companies to the area. So thanks again to the Cary Chamber in particular, but all the chambers for the partnership that we can build between the business community and the education community. Finally, I think it's still important to pay attention to the COVID situation in our county. Unfortunately, the county has not updated its numbers for the last 10 days. But from the data that we have from the state, which is, again, 2 weeks old, we're still hovering right around the 300 to 350 cases per 100,000 population. So we're in the medium to very significant number of cases being transmitted. In the Wake County schools, for the week of 7/31, there were 234 cases. For the week of 8/7, there were 301 cases. It's keeping climbing. The student cases are 1.6 times what it was a year ago. Staff cases are 3.7 times what it was 1 year ago. Basically, last week we had 82 staff that were out. So whatever you think about COVID, the reality is that we have 82 staff that are not filling classrooms or their various jobs. That was 48 elementary schools, 48 people in 48 elementary school classrooms were without teachers. That is substantial. And that's when we have only the fraction of the schools in session being year-round. So please, everybody, as you come back to school, make sure you think about the COVID protocols, both to keep you and your teachers in the classrooms, but also please look out for those around us who need support from special needs It is a community effort, and we must work together to keep this under control and to keep everybody healthy, because you can only learn effectively when you're healthy. Thank you.
Ms. Scott?
Thank you and good evening. I wanted to, in addition to our generous friends at Wake Ed Partnership, over this past weekend, Todd's Productions in Zebulon also had a school supply drive or giveaway to schools that were east of the Neuse. So it's an important thing to Eastern Wake, and I appreciate Todd's Productions. They were also a critical piece in the town of Zebulon's Juneteenth celebration. So I just want to thank our community partners for all they do in supporting our schools and communities. And then also to say a huge congratulations to our semifinalist principals and assistant principals. Recognized a lot of the names on the list throughout the county, of course, but oh my goodness, they're the ones in District 1. I'm so proud of them, so proud of all of them. Please just be mindful of everything that our principals are doing. I have seen where principals are covering for a cheerleading coach, and they were not necessarily a cheerleader in their past life, but covering as they were getting ready to hire one. They really do so much for our schools, and I think educators who have strong principals, they understand the gravity of their roles and how much time they invest really year-round, and they don't have weekends off. And I don't know how our multi-track year-round principals do the jobs that they do. It truly is phenomenal. And it's been difficult seeing the glitch or intentional glitch, however you may phrase it, in the state budget with principal pay. And it just weighs heavy on you. And I think it weighs heavy on our employees, any of our employees, when they feel that they're not being valued, oftentimes by people who have certainly never been in their shoes, let alone their building, to see the work they do. So moving it back to positive again, thank you so much to our principals and assistant principals, and congratulations to all those semifinalists, but really congratulations to all of them for the work that they do each and every day. Thanks.
Ms. Johnson-Hostler?
Thank you. So I've already heard a few of my colleagues mention stuff the bus. I'll just add I'm a super competitive human being. So I was there after our board members left and got to see the Holly Springs bus load come in for Stuff the Bus, and I got to see quite how competitive they were as well. They were competitive across locations, but also competitive across departments. So it was certainly, which I can always appreciate. I also want to note I was talking to some of those volunteers, and some of them didn't have children. They were just excited to be able to be volunteering to give back to our kids, and they were showing me all the cool new things, like there's a whole little new Post-it process that you can purchase for your students and teachers. So they showed me lots of new gadgets I hadn't seen yet for schools. But again, our relationships are invaluable with our community partners, and that's just another example of our partnership with UNC Health Systems. And similar to Dr. Barton, I sat across from the CEO at the Cary Chamber breakfast, and he assured me the buses would be stuffed, and they really were completely stuffed and very well organized. So again, we appreciate all of our community partners. I also got the great opportunity to visit the city of Raleigh at Chavis Community Center, which I had not actually been to the back where the splash pad is. I just parked there to walk up to look for the community resource center, and I got stuck at the splash pad with parents and kids who were like, "This is great." The weather wasn't horribly hot on Saturday, so parents were getting lots of resources, but children were certainly enjoying the new playground and the splash pad. But again, another partnership with our community of preparing parents with resources before we start back the traditional school calendar. And I think it's important that we continue to reiterate this as board members, that truly our partnerships in our community community are one of our greatest investments and speaks to the importance of Wake County Public Schools as a part of our full community. So again, great to see our partners in there, the ways that they're also preparing. And I know, like many of you, there's so many school kickoffs because we are actually going to school a little bit later this year in August. But we will continue to highlight and thank our community partners for the ways in which they're investing in our students and our educators alike. I also got the great opportunity to go to one of my elementary schools. Many of us at the board table have talked about RAMP, which a lot of our middle schools and high schools apply for through their school counseling program to be recognized for the great work that they're doing. Apparently, there is another one. This is my first time hearing about the elementary, so I got the name completely right for this time. It's similarly like RAMP, a model program through the American School Counselors Association, but North Carolina has a Counseling Diamond Award that Willow Spring Elementary is preparing, that will then allow them to probably be one of the first elementaries to fully invest. And I can remember when Lincoln Heights, when I first came on the board, they were invested in this as well. And so it looks like they've built a program stronger that's more applicable to our elementary schools. So that's exciting. It was also great to walk through the schools, which we talked a little bit about the strategic plan. They were showing me the ways in which they've created safe spaces and healthy spaces for our students. Like one teacher under her desk had like a little pillow where kids could have some downtime and some quiet time, and she had put wallpaper in the cutout of the desk so that it was really just relaxing. She had a little hand puppets under there. And so I asked the school counselors, because this is a school I, for the last 2 years, have been invested in social and emotional well-being for their educators. So they read a book each year before they get started. And so I asked, and they actually do have little toolkits for their educators also to start thinking through how do you use these tools for also self-care and self-well-being during the day. So I said I would share that because I think it's a great idea for our schools, and it's throughout the entire school, down the hallway. So when students or people aren't feeling their best or need a little space, there's literally a little toolbox that reminds you to starfish breathe or to pick up something. So I think our schools are being really innovative, and I thought that was a great example of the school physically having these toolboxes throughout the building that anyone can use to kind of settle themselves and refocus to get through the day, and remembering that a lot of us need a lot of refocusing some days based on what we may be experiencing. So again, a great shout out for sharing that, and hopefully other schools who have thought about ways to do it, these are a great school to talk to about how they're implementing these physical locations throughout their schools. Lastly, you all know that Ms. Cash and I love our high school athletics. And over the weekend, they had several jamborees, but Friday night is the first night of Friday Night Lights, so we'll be back with our band, our cheerleaders, and our football teams. So for those of you who don't have anything to do Friday night, Wake County will have football games all over the county ready to get us started. Again, a whole week before we start school, but nonetheless, we will be back in school spirit. So hope to see you all celebrating our young people across all of the ways that we get to see both our arts and our athletics on the field on Friday nights.
Thank you. Ms. Cash.
That makes me smile. I'm so ready for that football thing. And there's been a lot of beautification projects going on in our schools where PTAs are coming in and teachers and staff. So I want to thank them. And again, then today, and Superintendent Moore was there and spoke at the finish line for our community supply drive, that Tools for Schools by Wake Ed Partnership. It was a great event. It again showed how many partnerships that we have in Wake County and how many of our community members want to be a part of that. So, and then I hope that everybody that's here or in the audience will listen to the presentation that was given today by Wake Together. This is a big effort by our partners, such as the Y, Boys and Girls Club, many others, and I really appreciate a board member that used to sit in my seat between my first time and my last time. Tom Oxum is a real advocate of this community partnership for our tutoring program. So I want to thank him as well as all the partners. And if anybody has missed a presentation that happened today, I want you to please go back and look at that. It is all about our community coming in to volunteer hours to work on whatever happened during the pandemic, any interrupted learning that we had, but it's going to be a significant lift for our kids in Wake County to help with the efforts that we will do as we move forward. And then just wanted to, and I know, Dr. Martin, you like to talk about the COVID parts, but I being a healthcare provider, I was thinking over the weekend when I was working at the hospital, we have viral pneumonia in the hospital, we have TB, we have influenza. We're full of a lot of infectious diseases at the hospital. And so I'm would prefer to not intentionally focus on COVID at this point. I feel like what I see at the hospital is much more a part of our community right now, and maybe one COVID case among a lot of viral cases in our community. So I think we should always take safety in anything, but I think it's a lot of different things. So I just wanted to mention that.
Ms. Carter?
Thank you. And I wanted to share with Mrs. Scott's congratulations to all the principal and the AP of the year semifinalists. It was fun to see different semifinalists shouting out someone else and not even mentioning that they themselves were on that list. And I think that speaks volumes to our staff in our school. So congratulations to all of you, and thank you for everything you do for our students and families. I too enjoyed, I know, Stuff the Bus. The only thing I want to throw out there is it was 24,000 school supply items, according to a communication we got just a little bit ago from the Rex and the UNC Together event, which I think it really, having that number to me, it was like, oh, 24,000, that's a lot. It really was a lot. We knew it, but to see the number. So I appreciate everyone's efforts in that and everyone donating. And I too I was going to thank the Cary Chamber of Commerce for the leadership event that was last week. That was nice as well. And yesterday I went to another first for me, a golf, I think I'm saying this right, golf match. Is that what? Okay. Because I would just say my level of expertise with golf is miniature golf. So I've not had any experience on a true golf course besides what happened. That was just yesterday. And that was at McGregor, the country club there. Yeah, McGregor Downs there. And I get there and they're like, oh, you can rent a golf cart. I'm like, oh, I don't think I'm going to do that. So because, you could follow certain groups around, but then I was like, oh, well, if I stay at one hole, then I can see the different folks coming through and get out of the way of all the golf carts. But it was a great, for me, first. I enjoyed seeing, it was the ladies, the women golfers out there, and enjoyed seeing a little spirit too in their different hats or visors that they wear. You see some of their personality coming out there. And it was just, I enjoyed it. So I was going to speak to in the athletic events, really try to support these students and the coaches and the volunteers and everyone that make this possible, the referees, everything that's involved. And not only the football, the marching band, there's soccer right now. There's so much you could do if you don't have much. And it's kind of hard for me, being on the board, trying to track everything, what school has what, when, JV, varsity, men's, women's, but it's worth the effort, I'll say. So if you don't have time on Friday nights, you can look and see there's stuff going on right now, volleyball or what have you, and I think it is well worth the time and the little bit of money, I think, compared to what else you could be doing to show those students and programs that they are important and they are a vital part of our school system. And, our artists and our performers, there'll be so many things coming up soon. I like seeing on social media they release what play or musical they're going to be doing, whether it's in the fall or the spring. It's kind of like, oh, okay, now I know what's coming up, and try to, plan for that. I love them. And so I just really encourage everyone. Actually met at one event I went to. It was community members, and they were elderly, and they said they go around and do this because they love our schools, they love our students, and it was a performance, a drama performance, and for them, it's a great cultural experience and community experience. So I was like, please tell your friends, have them come out. So I appreciate all of everyone's support on that. And I wanted just to announce District 9's first BAC meeting of the year. It will be held on Tuesday, September 13th at 6 p.m. And the location, still working on that. Hopefully have that solidified here soon, trying to get that put in place. And I will also be hosting a D9 Connection meeting on Sunday, August 28th at 7:30. Thank you.
Ms. Waters, if you would please close us out.
Thank you, Chairman Haffey. And like many of my colleagues, I have attended a lot of amazing events in the last couple of weeks, and the Cary Chamber of Commerce was excellent. And I appreciated sitting at the table with a family physician who moved his family here because of our school system. And so that really spoke volumes to me about the quality of the education that we provide here in Wake County. And Friday morning, it was a torrential rainstorm, so I didn't think I was going to be able to see the Stuff the Bus, but the weather cleared up perfectly, and so that was my first time experiencing Stuff the Bus, and appreciate all that UNC Health did to make sure that our teachers have the supplies that they need for a successful school year. And Advanced Community Health had an amazing impact brunch, and Advanced Community Health, if you're not familiar with the organization, is a great partner for individuals who need medical services in our community. And so it was great to see so many different partner organizations, and Ms. Johnson Hostler shared a table with me, and just looking at the connection between health and learning. So just making sure that we have healthy students so that they can come to school prepared to learn is really important. Saturday morning was a great time for me. There was a back-to-school march, and that was from War Square downtown to Chavis Community Park. So I had my two boys in a wagon, and so we made our way over to Chavis and really appreciated the opportunity to walk through the community. And at Chavis, we stopped on the amazing playground there and then went inside for a overwhelming amount of community partners, resources, and information. It was just amazing to see so many great resources all in one room, and Wake Up and Read was in the room. We got some great flashcards, got some new books, and lots of different organizations represented there. So I appreciate all of that was done that day from Wake County Human Services, as well as the staff at Chavis Community. And while I was at the Chavis Community March, I met a young man, and I had on my Poe Elementary t-shirt, and he came over and asked me how I was connected with Poe, and his little sister went to Poe, but he actually went to Fuller. And so I said, well, I'm going to Fuller on Monday, brand new school. Would you like to join me? And so he said, sure. And so he and his brother both joined me, and it was an amazing experience. They went Fuller, Carnegie, Enloe, and they're both now in college, one at ECU and one at Duke. Completely different career paths, but just amazing to see how our district was able to nurture both of these young men. And let me tell you, I was so impressed when I arrived for the tour of Fuller. They were there before I was, before any of the adults were there, so they were punctual, they were prompt, and they were prepared. And going on the school tour with these students was really amazing because they had so many memories that they were able to share, and it just brightened up the tour so much. The school is beautiful. It is amazing. So very excited for Principal Hernandez and for the entire school community to come back to a brand new, amazing school, and really looking forward to going back when all of the students are in the building. So very excited about that. And there are a number of backpack giveaways coming up this weekend. So if any of our students are in need of school supplies, there are lots of community organizations who are providing those. And if you'd like information on that and need help finding that, please reach out to me. And also want to thank all WCPSS educators in every capacity. I am a mom of 2 children in the district, and I have a child who's 3 years old who attends Brentwood Elementary, and people always look at me funny when I say my 3-year-old goes to public school, but we have amazing pre-K program, and so just want to shout out all educators in the district for the hard work, and those who are already in school and those who are preparing for the traditional calendar. Really appreciate that. And I'm a working mother, so educators are so important to our lives, and particularly those who work carpool, because I do 2 carpools in the morning. So I appreciate all those smiling faces, particularly at the elementary school level. They always do such a great job of welcoming kids after a really busy morning routine. So thank you to all educators. I'm really grateful for your service and looking forward to another great school year.
Thank you very much. If we could get a motion to approve our meeting agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All right, hearing none. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Our meeting agenda is approved. We now move on to public comment. Public comment is accepted in video, written, and in-person formats. Members of the public are welcome to offer comments or criticism directed at substantive ideas, actions, or procedures of the board and individual board members. The laws and policies of North Carolina provide that issues or concerns involving individual personnel matters are confidential and therefore not appropriate for public comment settings. Concerns related to personnel issues may be addressed through applicable WCPSS personnel, the grievance policy, or other applicable policies. Those offering comments to the board, including students, may discuss issues and matters of general concern, but should refrain from discussing confidential student information. Concerns related to confidential student matters may be addressed through applicable WCPSS personnel, the grievance policy, or other applicable policies. As part of the public comment portion of this agenda, our written comments are linked on the same online agenda we are using for tonight's meeting. And that agenda, as well as guidelines for those wishing to submit comments for future meetings in written form, can be found at the school district's website, wcpss.net, under the tab labeled School Board. We have 2 written comments this evening. Topics include teacher salary increases and supporting diversity, equality, and inclusion in the classroom, as well as driver education contracts. During public comment, a green light will turn on as soon as you begin speaking. You may speak for up to 3 minutes. A yellow light will illuminate at the podium when there are 30 seconds remaining, and then a red light will signal that your time is up. In the interest of maintaining civility and decorum, speakers are encouraged to address their comments to the Board of Education and to refrain from personal attacks and insults directed at the board, individual board members, staff, or members of the general public. Please remain at the podium during your speaking time. Any materials you wish to share with the board should be handed to our board attorney either before or after your comments, and Mr. Blumberg is right there. We have 18 speakers signed up tonight, beginning with Diane Chandler. Ms. Chandler.
I want to first request of this board, or the new one that will be taking their place in January, that we change the format of the public school board meeting. This format of having a 9 of you respond to what has been said in previous meetings, and then not coming up here to speak for 3 minutes and not getting us anywhere. We need actual dialogue to get things to change. I am a District 7 Wake County parent of 2 children. I also happen to have a master's in education, and I sell children's books for a living. I would like to address the concerns that parents have about certain books in school libraries and the names that those parents have been called in the past few meetings by others. They've been called bigots, homophobes, extremists, to name a few. This is not okay. These parents want to protect their children's innocence. From what? From graphic, written information and visuals that are not appropriate for their age. It's not about stopping representation of certain groups. If a book with the same inappropriate content involving heterosexual characters were brought to our attention, we would be here saying the same thing. I firmly believe that representation is possible without the grossly inappropriate content. Ms. Kushner, you call these books affirming. I am truly curious, what parts do you consider affirming? The graphic, pornographic images, or the inappropriate relationship between an adult and a child? Are these the ideas and images you wish to affirm our young children with? I would also like to remind you that you read these books with all your adult knowledge and understanding. You cannot compare your understanding with the confusion and questions that it will most likely bring up in young children. Who should these children go to for clarification or answer to their questions? You have potentially and very likely cut off their parents as a source for these answers. And let's talk about those preschool flashcards that a speaker at the last meeting tried to downplay as just depicting a person who might be pregnant. No, it clearly showed a man who was pregnant, and at that age, part of the curriculum is helping children learn how to characterize things. And you want to confuse the most basic category that children understand. They should also teach children biologically incorrect information. The likelihood that these preschool children will encounter a man like this is very slim. It is really necessary to bring this in front of them, confusing their understanding, and again, bringing up questions that are going to be answered by whom. Let me close by telling you that in my 6 years of helping parents pick out books for their children, never once have I been asked to recommend a book that has been more graphic or more mature for their young children. It has actually been the opposite.
Thank you, Ms. Chandler. Our next speaker is Cheryl Caulfield.
Hello. I hope you are doing well. I am here this evening to speak for those families, students, and teachers that are not doing so well. My name is Cheryl Caulfield. I'm running for District 1 in November because I watched the decisions made over and over that harmed our children, strained our teachers, and shown over and over that our children are not coming first. 15 years ago, we rated at the top of the nation. Over the last decade, that quality has gone down a tremendous slope. Not because of our wonderful, hardworking teachers, not because of the students, not because of curriculum choices, but because of the curriculum choices, the lack of support and resources, and ignoring the source of the issues at hand. Alongside of spending in many wrong places, Wake County struggles with special education discipline, focus in the classroom, and a solid core curriculum, not Common Core Math, now called MVP. We send selective surveys to collect the data that we want to see and not in entirety. If we want the whole picture, real solutions, we should be starting with our teachers, our frontline workers, our families and children who are struggling and see what we need to adjust. And they should not come with ties because we know the surveys that are tied to their logins are not anonymous. These things were happening before COVID. Remote learning just unveiled the extent of it. With grades like 79% not proficient in high school math, that exemplifies the extreme number of students suffering. By the way, let's point out proficiency is 60%. That is not quality education. It's more like Swiss cheese. They are missing necessary building blocks. We are lowering the bar so that we can push them along. How do we boast a 90% graduation rate when only 21% of our children reach that expectation of grade level of Math 1? They don't have the skills that they need, and we push them along to the next level where their loss become greater, their frustration intensifies, and we wonder why teen depression is at drastic spikes. At what point does accountability come into play? We take responsibility for failed programs and adjust. It's not our teachers, it's not our students. They are not failing, we are failing them. At what point do we take the $400 million in COVID relief funds and use all of it for immediate resources for immediate problem? When do we start using our teachers' expectations and start with the questions, what can I do to help, with no strings attached? When we need to get back to our basics, we don't have 3 to 5 years, as new studies shows, for any kind of remediation. We need now. Our middle school and high school children do not have the time that that amount of time. We are not giving them the tools that they need to succeed. Over the past 3 years, many of us have tuned into these meetings searching for answers in a way, I guess, that is a blessing to our teachers and students because it's unveiling the many issues that bind us. It will hopefully empower parents to be involved, force decisions to stop the things that hold us back, push forward with the things that can help, and untie the hands of those that need it. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Daniel Grant King. My apologies. Our next speaker is Monica Ruiz, followed by Daniel Grant King.
Hi, my name is Monica Ruiz, and I am a Wake County Board of Education candidate for District 2. I have a Bachelor's of Science in Microbiology from the University of Maryland, College Park, and a Master's of Science in Secondary Ed from Old Dominion. I'm a teacher and a parent. I don't know if the public is aware that PowerSchool, the system used by teachers to take attendance, store health records, and store grades, has the sex of your child, my student, hidden and covered with stars. This means that we don't have the ability in PowerSchool to determine if a child is a boy or a girl. Now, under attendance in PowerSchool, the parents are no longer labeled as mother and father, just simply guardian. Not only is this an affront to people of faith, but this social construct of gender has poisoned the truth about what we teach our children about science and biology. This belief that gender fluidity means that we can somehow change our sex is fundamentally and scientifically false. This has nothing to do with treating people with dignity and respect as every person should be. This has to do with the fact that we are teaching children that the sex of an individual can be changed. From a biological point of view, this is inherently false. When the new human body curriculum came out for 5th grade, they added that if there's a child who identifies as the opposite sex, they should just be able to go with the group they identify with. The problem with this is each person is born either having 2 X chromosomes, making them a female, or an X and a Y, making them a male. There are only a few number of people who are truly intersex that do not possess the correct number of chromosomes on their sex chromosomes. We cannot teach children that how they feel will somehow cause their bodies to undergo puberty the way they want it to. There are biological differences between males and females, and to suggest that we are somehow the same is factually false. Being male or female is part of our DNA that cannot be changed, at least not yet. Right now, your DNA is your DNA is your DNA. I am demanding that this system be changed. This may be an edict from DPI, but supposedly this can be changed by each principal of a school. But if Wake County Public Schools and NCDPI are in the business of teaching children, then
Ms.
they
Ruiz,
are not
thank you.
teaching
Your
children
time
the
is up.
facts about science and biology.
Our next speaker is Daniel Grant King.
They are allowing social
Ms.
constructs
Ruiz,
about
your
gender
time is up.
to
Thank you
influence
very much. Please sit down. Mr. Grant King.
Good evening, everyone, including Superintendent Moore, district staff, Chairman Haffey, and board members. I'm Mr. Grant King, and of course, I am too running for the Wake County Board of Education, District 4, come this November. As I've been in this system almost going on close to 5 years or so now, coming in board meeting after board meeting, hearing time and again of the attacks by the far right accusing this board of not doing their job, accusing the board of not supporting educators. But let's keep it really real. You all do a job that sometimes is very difficult to ever imagine. And as I run this November, and as the voters will choose, I want people at home to make it very wise choice that we'll have to make. Because truthfully, as an educator, I've opened up my ears and brain to the realization that if attacks continue, that we will be in sincere trouble. And this board and future board members that will be elected will have to make decisions based upon what has been said by the public and many others. But of course, on this evening, I would like to thank district staff and many others for working in a swift way to improve the budget that will hopefully, of course, this is a start. Of course, many of you have acknowledged that issues has arisen, but in all, this is a great start. So with that being said, I want to make it very clear that if elected, I will focus and continue the advocacy with teacher pay and safety in our schools. Because when parents come through our school doors, they expect safety to be top of mind. And of course, as many others have attacked me personally for advocating for such matters, I would like to send a clear message, and that is no matter what is said, I will continue to work with each of you as board members in advocating for what educators justly deserve, and that is compensation for their hard work and none other than safety and accessibility to the curriculum that our students need to learn. So in closing, I would like to thank this board once again for the hard work and due diligence in all the matters. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Chad Stahl.
Hello, greetings. I would like to read a policy code 2120, Code of Ethics and Responsibilities for school board members. The Wake County School Board of Education recognizes that collectively and individually, all members of the board must adhere to a code as required by GS 160A-86 and GS 115-47, parentheses 57. It is important that a board member is nonpartisan in dealing with school matters and that he/she not subordinate the education of children and youth to any partisan principle. Not principle as in like the person, principle as in the concept, the ideology, group interest, or personal ambition. Each member of the board shall commit to the code set forth in this policy. And it goes on, it goes, board member ethical requirements, uphold the integrity and independence of the board member's office. And then I discovered that one of our sitting board members had sent an email to a third person, not to the person that they were speaking about, but to a third person, in which case I was called a dilettante, which I think it was the misspelling of the word. I don't think it was the way they meant to spell it, and a narcissist. So then, looked up the definition of narcissist. Someone in love with himself or herself, person full of egoism and pride, one who shows extreme love and admiration for himself or herself, someone in love with themselves. And then I got to thinking about how you guys use money to invest in yourselves. For example, Lisa, super talented professional, just got, I think, like a $45,000 raise. Superintendent Moore is now making $330,000. Between those two team members, that's $500,000. And yet you're here telling parents, hey, you got to do more, you got to do more, you got to do more. But yet when you have the opportunity to invest, you only invested in yourselves. So then I thought, well, how would you label a person who consistently only thinks of themselves, and when they have the money that they could give to children, teachers, bus drivers, cafeteria workers, they only continue to give it to themselves. Is that a reflection of self-love? Could it be a reflection of self-love? Why is it that our children are expected and our communities are expected to be selfless? They can no longer have a home, no longer a gender, no longer a race, no longer a father, no longer a mother, no longer a religion, but you can take whatever you want whenever you want it. Narcissist. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Amanda Lunn. Amanda Lunn.
It's so cool. We can chew gum, wear hoodies with our hoods up, and there's no dress code. It's nice not to have to worry about things like that. We can be more comfortable. And get this, it isn't hindering our ability to learn. We still do all the things we normally do. This was my 7th grader talking to my 5th grader last week when I picked them up from school. They were just conversing amongst themselves, which, by the way, the new Herbert Akins Road Middle School is fabulous. I love the open concept. It's fostering community, which speaks to me because that helps improve mental health outlooks. What I really liked about that is the limiting of the micromanaging for our students. And so I thank you for allowing schools and staff to have the flexibility to allow the students this leeway so that they do feel more comfortable and that they do have the opportunity to be more in control of the things that they can be in control of, fostering responsibility, ownership, and autonomy. And while I do believe that hiring more school counselors, psychologists, social workers, and nurses is one of the single best action items that we can have towards improving mental health outcomes, I'm grateful for the little things. And I also ask that we try to implement that for our teachers as well, limiting the micromanagement. At a time when teachers and support staff are leaving the profession to the degree it's negatively affecting our students, it's imperative that we support and value them wherever we are able. Teachers are trained experts. They should not only be paid accordingly for their levels of expertise, but we should also allow them the flexibility to teach to their students' own needs and not necessarily to some test. They should be supported for putting into practice the district's core beliefs, including number 5, which speaks to diversity and inclusion. They should also be involved in all places where decisions regarding schools are being made. When we properly value teachers, it not only improves morale and retention rates, but it also positively affects our children and their learning and growth. I appreciate hearing how each of you are involved with the schools. I can see how much you care for all of our students. I appreciate you taking a variety of parent and third-party input and making the best decisions that you can with all the variables that are in place, with all the knowledge that you have and the limited resources that you also have. I also appreciate the ways that you allow parents to be involved. I get no less than 2 emails every week, emails and text with newsletters. I have access to the curriculum, assignments, updates through PowerSchool, and I have the ability to be involved in the PTA and volunteer at the schools with my children. I also want to thank you for considering Election Day to be a non-school day.
Thank you, Ms. Lunn. Our next speaker is Carrie Bly.
Hello again. Pardon me. I have never seen parents step to this podium as many times as Pete and I have. And I've watched meetings that you have archived back as far as they go. I watched them to see what was important to all of you. After today, we have delivered 60 live speeches, not including 4 on reassignment. Pardon me. We've submitted 14 virtual comments and sent 4 formal emails. It's pretty sad that when we're not here, some of you worry about us. And all we're asking for is comprehensive math learning content in middle and high school courses so our kids can remember what they're tasked with learning. Peter, can you finish?
Ms. Black? No, we can't. We can only have one speaker at a time. I'm really sorry. But do you need some water?
Yes. Can I do that? Okay.
That's all right. I was trying to find your water bottle.
Ms. Bly, we're going to bring you a bottle of water. Pete, do you want to go? And then we'll restart with Carrie. Ms. Allen, do we have the clock restarted? Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Bly.
All right. Thank you. Hi. Since math seems to be confusing most of us, let's look at this a different way. If you, as a school district, want a child to read a particular book, then you have to give them the book for them to be able to read it, correct? This just makes common sense. However, if you want them to read a particular book, then you do have to spend the money to make sure every kid has a copy. But based on some research from somewhere, you decide to only purchase enough copies for a single classroom instead of every child, so you say that they can only read the book when they are in class. You tell them they can't bring the book home to catch up if they read slower than the other kids, that they can't have a copy at home should they get sick and not be in class, that they can't have a copy to look over when studying for the test if they can't remember everything they read last week. Yet this is exactly what you're doing with math. By not giving them tangible visual resources to use, you're leaving them stranded, frustrated, and eventually you lead them to give up should they not understand as quickly as the other kids in class, should they get behind because they were out sick, should they not remember what was told to them when they were studying for the test. You cannot or should not be able to hold our children accountable for basic math content that you yourselves have not been able to communicate in writing for over 3 years now. Currently, you tell us that limited access to visual materials should not affect their comprehension. But you know what? But how do you know that? You don't grade any of their homework for accuracy. Teachers are just looking to see if anything is written in the book, so neither our teachers nor the kids will actually know if they personally understood the material at the time, let alone can show mastery. Tests can be retaken over and over, or better test grades replace bad quiz grades, so parents will never have a clear runway to even see the starting point of a child that is struggling. If you do identify that your child is struggling, don't worry. We have online videos they can spend hours watching every night just to try and catch up. That is, of course, as long as you live in a house that has internet, or maybe you can just send your kid to Starbucks and they can do their homework there. If that doesn't work, then you should just trust in the process. Your kids will adapt. They'll learn to pay better attention in class. Don't worry, trust us, the struggle is good for them. And of course, you know that no matter what, we promise that every child will succeed. At least we hope every child succeeds. I'm sure somewhere somebody's research supports that students are more successful learning this way. And when we do push them through to graduate, at least 50% of them will have basic math and reading skills, which I guess is all you really need to deem them college and career ready, whatever that means. It's sheer absurdity of saying students are learning content, comprehensive, organized, meaningful math content, that in reality is becoming more and more painfully obvious that you yourselves are either incapable or unwilling to provide them, which is why this is a hill for us to die on. So here we are again, still asking for help 5 years later, speaking 3 minutes at a time every 2 weeks. Thank you.
Ms. Bly, do you need more time? Okay. No, it happens to everybody.
That was very kind of you. Thank you. I've never seen parents come to this podium as many times as Pete and I have, and I watched the meetings as far back as you have them archived. We've delivered 60 live speeches, not including our 4 to fight reassignment, submitted 14 virtual comments, and sent 4 formal emails. And what we are asking for, again, I like to say, is math learning content in middle and high school courses, so our kids can remember what they're learning and so parents can help them when they need it. And you have to wonder why, after all this time, 2 parents would stand up here asking for help for 3 years. And to repeat what Pete said, it's the sheer absurdity of the entire situation, the absolute absurdity of all of it. Our kid needed help in math, and the schools could offer no learning material so that we could help him catch up at home. And the simplicity of our ask and the inability of a school system to provide basic, organized, comprehensive content in secondary subjects is, like Pete said, why this is a hill to die on. You do understand at a base level that people in general really only get angry when an expectation hasn't been met. They thought a situation was going to go one way, and it didn't. Elementary school is the land of worksheets and composition books, and we were okay with that. We understood when our kids were small. But we really thought, having been educated in this state, thought that when our children entered middle and high school that our school system would be providing substantial learning resources to teachers and students, especially in complex subjects like math. Textbooks, digital textbooks, novels, digital reading literature, printable takeaways, notes. We had no idea that you thought it wasn't the school system's job to provide basic learning materials and contents to students anymore. And we think that the problem our children are facing today is not productive struggle to critically understand concepts. We believe that the only struggle they face is finding content. And to be fair and very clear, this is not a teacher problem. Again, we've had outstanding teachers in Wake County, and we watch them give up their planning periods, probably their lunch periods, and I've even watched a teacher leave her dining room table to sit on the patio and video chat with my son to help him with his homework. We know they care for our kids. We know they're amazing. We're just wondering if there will ever come a time when our children can do anything for themselves, learn for themselves, evaluate and assess themselves. And I could live 5 lifetimes and be completely at peace if I never heard the words intentional or strategic ever again. It may not sound nice to say this, but I think that this school system has intentionally stopped paying for learning resources many, many years ago, and that it is strategically avoiding purchasing reasonable, organized math learning content today. Now, you've never heard Pete and I stand up here and say that you work for us, that we pay your salary. We've been standing up here trying to say that we truly need to be partners. We understand that the most important thing we can do is continue in-class learning at home, and we just need the right tools.
Thank you, Ms. Bly. Our next speaker is Lana Witt.
Good evening. Yesterday was day 888 of our governor's emergency powers, which he finally relinquished knowing they were set to end in January of 2023, thanks to the balance of power still in place and the action of our North Carolina legislators last fall. So why are school board elections the #1 race in 2022? Because for over 2 years, guardians, parents, family members, like the ones speaking today, and educators experienced elected leaders, like our governor and school board members, confiscating personal and parental consent and involvement in the education and health decisions of our students. Extreme mandatory measures conditioned and socialized the youngest to the oldest of our students instead of guiding those growing minds to think, respectfully ask questions, and creatively, voluntarily problem solve in ways that build trust with one another in our community. Guardians at home have seen racially divisive ideas and age-inappropriate sexual content being taught without informing us. 77% of students attend public education, and we know that what's taught in public school becomes our future worldview, work ethic, and our workforce. So how did this elected leadership for Wake County Public Schools prepare the youngest to the oldest for their future? History shows us that the direction of education becomes the direction of local, county, state, and national governments. What do we want our future generations to value? Now that parents and many making public comment for over 2 years have proven correct with policy, will policy corrections begin for the extreme overreach and discrimination against healthy students the past 2 years? The loss of learning. Indoctrination of any kind must be rooted out of our school system. So let's elect leaders who let go of bigotry of any kind and are committed to pedagogy, shared values, and principles of learning to read, write, and solve problems together. Let's watch and vote for leaders who implement district policies that encourage creativity, actual scientific method, engage young minds in memorization of strong historic leaders like Winston Churchill, who reminds us that those who fail to learn from history are doomed to repeat it.
Our next speaker is Christina Kaye. Christina Kaye.
Hi, everybody. I'm Christina Kaye. This will be short. Just a few topics. COVID is not gone. First of all, I just want to make that clear. We know this because it's still spreading. People who have not had it are now getting it. It's more transmissible than ever. Book bans are bad. We shouldn't ban any books. Of course they should be age appropriate, but censorship is not something that this country was founded on. So why are we banning books? If you seek it out, you deserve to know about it. Teachers deserve to be paid more. They are helping us raise our children and our families, and they deserve the compensation, to have a livable wage. Not being, going home and working on their off hours basically makes it, less a minimum wage job. Who can live off that? No one that I know of. And we have too many teachers leaving the field right now that are not, because of pay. Wonderful teachers, beautiful teachers who, made such a difference in my children's life. And if we don't pay them, they're not going to stay. So anyway, and that's all I had to say. Thank you very much for your time.
Our next speaker is Cole Mcmullen. Cole Mcmullen.
It's well known that the pandemic has caused students to fall behind in the progress of their studies due to lockdowns and at-home learning that needed to occur to keep the students, teachers, and community safe during this difficult time. I was encouraged to read in the N&O an article published in June that said Wake County would be investing ARPA funds in high-dosage tutoring programs, which will aim to provide one-on-one tutoring for students. And I was further encouraged to hear that this afternoon about the Wake Together program that will soon be implemented. I'm also thankful for the teachers of Wake County Public Schools who have been put through tremendous pressures the past 2 years and yet remain undercompensated. I don't think a 4% raise is enough in a time when inflation is 8%, but I think they definitely need to be more greatly compensated. One pressure that teachers should not be facing is the possibility of being forced out of their job because they provide a welcoming environment to LGBTQ plus students. Trans students have become a target of vicious attacks by right-wing extremists, both in the halls of state legislatures and in our very own community, as evidenced here tonight, unfortunately. Queer students have a right to exist and come to school in peace. Teachers have a right to acknowledge the existence of queer students and queer people and to acknowledge that their existence is not a reason for fear. What action is the Wake County School Board taking to ensure that teachers are protected from right-wing extremists? Are the current policies of the school district being upheld fairly in order to protect teachers and LGBTQ plus students? What support are teachers receiving from principals to ensure that the classroom is a welcoming environment to LGBTQ plus students? And then as a quick aside, I by no means claim to be all-knowing, but I do have a doctorate in biochemistry, and I know that gender is much more complex than statements of faith claim to be. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Houston Culpepper. Houston Culpepper.
All right. After recent news of the CDC waiving their guidelines regarding COVID, which directly contradicts science over containment, spread, and a reduction of COVID across the country, including Roy Cooper's ending of the state emergency. There's concerns about funding, allotment of resources for students, parents, teachers, and staff after this decision. The FDA currently provides emergency authorization for children of 6 months of age to 17 years old. While the vaccine is still currently effective at preventing hospitalization and death and other severe outcomes, with the new Omicron variant has shown to evade vaccine efficacy in adults. This means reduced efficacy response and the period of time that you are immune or show an immune response. Leaving this variant without proper mitigation will lead to worsening spread and further mutation and worst health outcomes. This is why retaining masks in classrooms is important, including N95 masks, which are the only defense currently that show strong protection. Cloth and surgical masks have not shown proper protection against this new Omicron variant. Mask standards must be upgraded, and we seek the support of the North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services to aid the school board in making decisions that are appropriate for the health of students, teachers, staff, parents, and the surrounding community. Only 30% of children 6 months of age, 17 years of age, are currently vaccinated with at least one dose. And the breakdown is further: 1% of those under the age of 4, 25% of those 5 to 11, and 45% of those 12 to 17 years of age. It is important to increase the school opportunities for vaccination on site. Only one medical office in my district, that is District 8, but Holly Springs currently allows children under the age of 5 to be vaccinated at one location. It's important to work with leading professionals in healthcare services and infectious diseases to make it easier for those who seek vaccination and protect themselves against COVID with N95 masks. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Ginger Gorel.
Hello, my name is Ginger Gorel. I'm not running for office. I'm just a parent. I've got 3 kids in Wake County schools. I have a high schooler, 2 middle schoolers, and I would like to talk about how early they go to school. My middle school does run on a high school schedule because they share buses with high schoolers. Since 2014, the AAP has recommended that high schools do not start before 8:30 in the morning. It is widely known that our teenagers just have different biological rhythms, different biological clocks, and our kids are not going to be able to learn at their best when they are chronically exhausted. Our kids aren't going to bed late because of anything. Well, I'm sure kids go to bed late for different reasons. When my kids go to bed, it's because their body's telling them it's time for sleep. My oldest is a high sleep needs child. They have managed to maintain a sleep schedule that gets them ready for school when we leave at 6:30 in the morning, only by doing things like skipping birthday parties on Saturday nights, limiting their extracurricular activities. That's the only way that they are able to go to school in the morning and function. I'm a math tutor, and so many of my students will text me panicked, say, I have math first period. What am I going to do? I'm too tired. Excuse me, it's been a long day. When I bring this up with people, a lot of times I get 2 responses, and they'll say, well, we need to prepare our kids for the real world. What real world? What real world runs on a 7:30 to 2:30 schedule? Mine doesn't. I start work at 4. My husband starts work at 9 o'clock. This idea that we have to prepare our kids for the real world by ignoring their biological clocks and by putting them in a situation where they are already not at their best simply because they're tired isn't helping us, and it's not preparing them for the real world. People who are chronically tired actually have memory problems. They do not retain information that they've learned. They're not at their academic best. And I really believe if we consider starting our high schoolers later, that we would all benefit. Every student, regardless of any political agenda or what books you think your kids should or shouldn't read. All of our students can benefit from having, high school students can benefit from having a later start time. The other thing that I hear is about extracurricular activities and sports. Those are extra. I don't believe that our high school students should have to have a start time based on the extracurricular activities. I also have noticed that when my child was worried about getting their nighttime driving hours, and my husband said, oh, we don't have to worry about that. Don't forget that you drive to school when it's dark outside. We leave our house at 6:30. Our bus comes at 5:45 in the morning. So it's really not conducive. And it's funny when we come downstairs and my elementary school student's in his bathrobe getting ready to game with his friends because he's up and he's ready to go, like all children his age are. But my high school students are just simply not at their best because they're not being set up for success. So respectfully, I'd like to ask y'all to consider that, and thank you for all the work that you do. Thank you very much.
Our next speaker is Jennifer Job.
Hi, my name is Jennifer Job. I have a master's in teaching, a PhD in curriculum studies and teacher education, and 18 years of teaching experience, which I think gives me a little bit of authority to say that the teaching shortage that we're facing, the 650 open positions that are on the portal right now, cannot only be blamed on pay. The teacher educator programs right now are at a historic low enrollment, so there's no new wave of teachers coming. There's not a whole bunch of graduates that are about to come to fill these spots. And I can say with confidence that it's not about being paid poorly. Teachers have always been paid poorly. They've never been paid what they're worth. So what's new is the profession itself has become untenable. We as a community cannot expect a teacher to earn a master's degree in the latest literacy techniques to teach our kids how to read and then police and censor her book choices. We cannot expect a teacher to care for our child as if he were her own and expect her to turn a blind eye to the needs of other children in her classroom, lest she be accused of indoctrination. We cannot expect a teacher to spend her nights and weekends developing innovative lesson plans and demand that she put her lesson plans online in neat little boxes that can be approved by legislators who don't know anything about education. We cannot expect a teacher to differentiate her instruction to each child and then create situations where classrooms are packed with 35 or more kids. And we can't expect a teacher to give each of her students worth and growth the attention they deserve, while requiring her to use every iStation /Dreambox /whatever app happens to have gotten the ear of the superintendent at the Department of Public Instruction at the moment. And finally, we cannot expect teachers to be the life changers we want them to be for our children, when they are constantly the brunt of a list of national talking points of animosity and anger that has nothing to do with them and that they did nothing to deserve. We are going to keep losing more teachers until we can no longer patch our schools together if we don't change things. To the board, I ask you to continue to do the good work that you're doing of protecting our teachers and providing what they need as professionals so they can continue to provide excellent instruction to our children. And to the rest of the room, I urge you to join your PTAs, join your local school foundations, focus on supporting your children in these difficult times. And remember that your children's teachers need your support as well. And that support comes in very many ways. This should be a goal we can all agree on. Thank you.
Thank you. Remind speakers that comments should be addressed to the board. Thank you. Our next speaker is Katie Long. I'm sorry. Mr. Nutt, do you mind if you go after Ms. Long? Yeah. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Katie Long. Our school system has policies that are failing our children. There's learning loss issue which has yet to be addressed. Where is the public discussion about helping the students to get back on track with what really matters? Why isn't this priority number one? A concerned mom in District 7 brought an issue to my attention, and I want to bring it to you. This mother just now found out what occurred last school year. She learned what happened when her son and his friend, who were in 3rd grade, were talking about the S word. The concerned mom thought S stood for SHIT, but during discovery, it was actually S for sex. A 3rd grade teacher at Parkside Elementary School played an audiobook to her students on the alphabet called ABC of Equality. I began to question why sex is being mentioned, as this is not part of the 3rd grade curriculum. Sex education is not developmentally appropriate for 3rd graders according to the North Carolina Standard Course of Study. Why weren't parents informed about this lesson that does not adhere to state guidelines? Not every parent would want this read to their child in school. This is not about teaching the alphabet. Transparency and trust between the school board and parents have been broken. I don't have enough time to go over every letter in this book, but let me say, S is for sex. When a baby arrives, the doctor will say it's a boy or girl, depending on their understanding of baby's body. This is the sex category. Does anyone think that this is developmentally appropriate way to teach 3rd graders, 7 and 8 years old, the alphabet? The state of North Carolina doesn't. There are 13,690 words that start with the letter S. I think our schools can do better than this. The same teacher at Parkside Elementary sent home a consent form to allow parents the ability to opt out of their child watching the movie Peter Pan. Seriously? A form was available to opt out of seeing a movie, but the teacher did not provide the ability to opt out of the curriculum that does not meet the state guidelines. There's lack of transparency in the curriculum, and parents' rights have been stripped. Boundaries are being crossed without parental consent. Parents should always have a say in their children's education. What about the letter N for no? No thank you to the curriculum that does not provide our children to the foundational skills appropriately required by the North Carolina Standard Course of Study. We must do better for our children. Please address the learning loss and the failing proficiency level issues and focus on the core curriculum. In order to be successful, students must master these things first, the things that are developmentally appropriate for their grade level per the state of North Carolina. Our focus needs to return to the student's success. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Mike Nutt.
Board members, thank you sincerely for your time and the opportunity to speak to you tonight. I'm the father of a Conn Elementary student in District 4. In May, a Ballantine Elementary teacher was forced to resign after a targeted harassment campaign by right-wing bigots for using inclusive flashcards. These cards were for learning colors and showed all kinds of different people. Because this board failed to protect and reinstate this teacher, and because they have yet to propose any concrete steps to ensure it never happens again, this board has now implemented their own Don't Say Gay policy in Wake County schools. If one teacher can be forced to resign for inclusive teaching materials, any teacher can. Now, I know many of you care deeply about equity. And this is not something that you're happy about. But what we need, especially from those of you who are seeking re-election, is to commit to action and a commitment to support these teachers in your platform. Board Member Waters, your website says educators are our greatest assets in the work we do to prepare our students for success. It is critical to recruit, retain, and reward those who give so much of themselves to this district. Indeed, we had a beloved elementary school teacher at Ballantine who apparently had to give so much that she was forced to resign because she dared to be inclusive. How can we possibly, as you say, recruit, retain, and reward teachers when they know their school board members won't have their backs when the Republican trolls come? That's what it takes to be a school board member now. I need you to commit to protecting inclusive materials. Board Representative Johnson Hostler, on the platform page of your re-election campaign website, you list teacher support as one of your 7 platform planks. Yet you do not pledge that you will protect our most caring teachers who use inclusive teaching materials at all ages. You also do not mention the protection of queer students at all on your platform page. You could, though, you could lead this effort to find a concrete solution to what happened in your district. Representative Haggerty's campaign website is pretty sparse when it comes to what he believes. The word teacher appears twice, but there are certainly no promises to protect teachers who use inclusive teaching materials. Perhaps you and your colleagues will consider updating your websites and adding this to your planks. Can you do that so that we don't lose another teacher to Don't Say Gay in Wake County? Chairman Happy, that we already did lose a teacher to Don't Say Gay reflects poorly on your leadership, I'm sorry to say. Now I'd like to ask you to be accountable to that teacher. On your website, you list supporting our teachers as one of your 3 priorities, but in that plank on your platform, you fail to identify your own role. If you want to be reelected, you need to be accountable for what's happened on your watch. The ball is in your courts. We need to know, is it revising policy 3200? Is it a different policy? How are you going to repair this harm and prove to our teachers that you have their backs? Thank you.
Our next speaker is Kim Manny.
Thank you for this opportunity to speak to the board. I'm a regular parent with a child who is successfully progressing in Wake County schools here in Apex. Watching these proceedings online, I am concerned about parents who are being told that they don't have an opportunity to have their voice heard in our schools. To make sure my data was correct, I spoke to leadership of every PTA or checked the website of the PTA at every Apex elementary and middle school. Every PTA was looking for volunteers for something. Some even needed to have leadership roles filled. I want to encourage all parents whose actual agenda is to keep our schools, teachers, and students successful and working to know that you are welcome to participate. My dad used to say, if you have time to lean, you have time to clean. After watching the proceedings that are happening here, perhaps the theme should be, if you have time to rope, which means to complain, you have time to help. I will be excited to welcome all parents to book fairs, fundraisers, and to see them happily pushing teacher snack carts in our hallways. Thanks to all of you on the board who are supporting our public schools and helping to keep them a welcoming place for all students, teachers, administrators, and parents. Thank you so much.
Our next speaker is Sinead Borgerson.
Yes, you got most of it right. Hello, my name is Sinead Borgerson, and I'm not running for anything. I'm a parent. I'm also a treasurer at the Apex High. I've got a high schooler and a middle schooler and moved over from San Jose. And if you can't tell, I also moved from Ireland about 25 years ago. I just sound like I'm off the boat. Anyway, I want to first thank the Wake County Board members, the teachers and staff, for the amazing support during the last 2 years of the pandemic. How quickly everybody forgot. You gave our children amazing support during a very, very difficult time. We now have a shortage of teachers with burnout at an all-time high and not enough recruitment or pay for the 680 positions that are open. Teachers are not getting the support from the administration they need in terms of autonomy, support, and protection. We need to attract more great teachers for Wake County and retain the great staff we have. And I know this is also a North Carolina budget issue as well. In addition, I see a lot of scare tactics from conservative white people trying to scare our community about nothing burgers, like telling children about sexuality or the truth about our history. In doing so, they hope to scare up voters when what we need to focus on is making sure our kids are ready for this millennium and the new digital workforce in the world. For curriculum, I've seen a lot of nonsense about not teaching modern-day sexuality, actually teaching children about the mistakes of history, such as the horrible truth about slavery or Native Americans, the Trail of Tears, and the horrors we brought from here and abroad. Only by showing the light and the truths of yesterday can we make sure that we recognize how we can be better in the future. Whitewashing it and pretending it didn't happen, or that kids and teens don't have questions or experiencing sexuality, is McCarthyism and pure idiot blindness at best. Pretending it didn't happen or doesn't happen won't help us to understand and make sure it doesn't happen again. The teachers are teaching facts. So let's get out of their curriculum, please, and focus on making sure we retain the best ones and make our schools safe zones for the kids and staff. I also really applaud the county for putting mental health resources, not only for the kids and the parents, but I also recommend for the teachers as well. The teachers that I've talked to are really suffering from just having to try and do their jobs and then get protection as well. And I really urge that we do support that for all the teachers. And also as a parent who didn't have a spleen and my kid doesn't have a spleen, so we do have to wear masks, we really appreciate the safety steps that the schools are taking. The new variant is got an R value of 18. The first one had 1. That means for every one person that has COVID, they can spread it to 18 other people. That's not nothing to put our masks away for. Thank you.
Thank you to everyone who participated in public comment. We now move on to our superintendent updates. Superintendent Moore.
Good evening again. During the work session today, we had 4 topics that were brought by staff for review and updates to the board.
That's a trifecta right there.
First item was a Wake Together community partnership update. This is now the name that is associated with the tutoring initiative that we began speaking about last school year. This initiative brings together a number of community partners. It is going to be spearheaded in terms of collecting the volunteers from the community by the YMCA. That website has been up and running for about a week now, already taking volunteers. It is a coordinated effort that will have a specific training and program that will support students who are identified at the school level. We're starting with 30, expanding to about 58 schools to directly address needs associated with literacy for growth for our students. And so we're excited about that partnership and look forward to beginning it sometime probably in September or sometime during the first quarter. The second item that we talked about in the work session was an update on the strategic plan. We brought that back after about a month or so. The board has already looked at mission, vision, core beliefs, and we've looked at some essential areas to prioritize, as well as some pillars beneath that. And the next section of work for the board really is on establishing goals. So the board provided some feedback on our last work session with regards to the strategic plan on what we wanted to see in the goals. So we brought some areas for you to look at today, not really specific goals, but sort of draft areas around which we could draft goals. A number of questions came up today. There will be continued work as we move forward. We are still looking at a target date of sometime in the fall for adopting the strategic plan. Staff also brought today a review and some updates of information that was shared previously at the last work session for the 22-23 salary schedules. That information was reviewed in work session again today with some examples from actual salary charts and tables to provide a little bit more clarity to what that looked like. And that is an action item on the board agenda for this evening. The fourth item that we brought in the work session was a transportation update. That transportation update included a little bit of information about where we've been historically over the last couple of years, what happened in terms of our not ridership, but our number of drivers. First, due to some reorganization that happened and some efficiencies a few years back, and then what happened we were steady for a few years, and then the decline that happened beginning with the pandemic in terms of the number of bus drivers we have available. We talked about some of the strategies that are in place to continue to hire, recruit, and train bus drivers, but we have also included in that information about ensuring that we are promoting safety on buses as well. And that really does speak directly to acknowledging that there is one adult on that bus and his or her job is to drive the bus, and that we need to work with our schools and our families and our students to make clear expectations around behaviors and interactions on bus so that we can maintain the degree of safety that is expected and that we all want. So there is continued work that will happen in that arena as well. We also set the context for the number of drivers that we are short, not just in yellow buses, but also in contract transportation, knowing that we will have, we have vacancies, we have some shortages. We've dropped for the second year in a row the number of routes that we have available, which means rides will be longer. The double backs at schools will increase. which that includes moving from 30 minutes, arriving at school 30 minutes before the bell rings, to now it's 40 minutes before the bell rings. That's been the second year in a row that we're doing that, and the same in the afternoon. So we're going to continue to experience the pain of having a shortage of bus drivers in our schools, and we just wanted to set that context through our presentation today, as well as the continued efforts to continue to hire and recruit, and hope that we will, see more drivers come out and stick with us. And as the salary is increasing, we know that that's not the only thing that they're looking for. That's the case really in all of the areas. I think we are not different than any other organization that we find across this country right now that is struggling for staffing. So those were the 4 updates provided during the work session today, and that concludes my updates.
Thank you, Superintendent Moore. At this time, I'll accept a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Chairman Happy, I move approval of our consent agenda as listed.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Yes, Ms. Scott.
I did just want to, Madam Chair, publicly express my gratitude to staff for pulling and adding in and making some adjustments to item 3F on the consent agenda. So thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Any other comments or questions? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor of approving the consent items, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. All right, moving on to our action items. Our first one comes out of finance. And as Superintendent Moore said, that this would be one of 2 things that would be coming. The first is our 2022-2023 budget reconciliation recommendations. And with us is our Chief Business Officer, David Nieder. Go ahead, Mr. Nieder.
Reviewed recommendations for reconciling the board's proposed budget to the final state and local budgets, and to staff compensation increase recommendations that were made at that same meeting on August 2nd. Tonight, we're asking for your formal approval of those budget reconciliation recommendations. We'll bring the formal budget resolution for 2022-23 likely to your second October meeting, as we cannot pull all the numbers necessary for that together until we actually do the salary rolls, which will take place in September for the final 2022-23 salary schedules, and also make the recommendations we're asking you to approve tonight. I want to review with you the recommendations that we did make at your August 2nd meeting. The recommendations were made as a result of the need of finding $9.2 million to close a funding gap. When we break down what that $9.2 million funding gap was comprised of, first, there was a net $2.3 million of additional local funding required for the additional compensation increase requests. There was a $900,000 increase in local funding required to meet the final state employer contribution rate for retirement for our locally funded employees. And finally, there was a $6 million variance between the board's requested a county appropriation for this year and the final county appropriation budget. The recommendations to reconcile the $9.2 million funding gap are: first, an increase in the estimate of indirect cost revenues of $3 million. And that increase is based on the final actual indirect cost revenues for the 2021-22 year, which were ascertained at the end of July of this calendar year, a month after the fiscal year end. A repurposing of $3 million of lapsed salaries. Current vacancy rates support this recommendation. An increase in fund balance appropriation of $3 million. And there were 2 additional minor recommendations. First was removal of a business case in the proposed budget that requested $180,000 of local funding for the Wake Early College of Information and Biotechnology. In the state's final budget, developed during the short session and presented, I think, finished up on July 1st, the state included funding for the Wake Early College. So there'll be no resultant impact from that reconciliation adjustment. And finally, a review of existing replacement furniture inventories, indicating we are in a position to support our schools and can reduce this base budget replacement furniture by $59,000 without reducing the support we can extend to our schools when they need replacement furniture. I want to finish up by just sort of commenting on operating budgets in general. Operating budgets, as I think we all know, are fluid. They're a living thing. They change every day. Relative to the overall budget, the recommendations we're making to you represent a fraction of 1% of the overall operating budget. The recommendations provide basis for moving forward with essential staff compensation changes and other needs essential to the district without requiring a resultant impact, I should say negative impact, to other areas that directly support our core business. The fluid needs of managing an operating budget require regular, daily assessment and evaluation of the budget. Terry Kimsey, Senior Director of Budget, discussed some of that with the board at the Finance Committee meeting you had on the 2nd. This ongoing review, assessment, and adjustment is essential to managing a fluid budget, large or small. And just as we have in the past during the Great Recession, we continue to proactively manage through the ebbs and flows of our budget. We have on our radar the future pandemic funds transition we must effectively manage through, just as implications of our recommendations today are on our future radar to similarly manage through. So with that context, in support of staff's recommendations, I now ask the board's consideration of approval of the recommended 2022-23 budget reconciliation adjustments to the board's proposed budget.
Chairman Haffey.
Yes, sir.
I would move approval of the recommended reconciliations for our budget.
Okay, we have a motion by Vice Chair Hagerty, a second by Ms. Cash. Any comments, questions for Mr. Nieder, or just in general before we move forward?
Only that I really appreciate the discussion that we were able to have in finance earlier about this, and you talking about recognizing the needs that we have for our teachers, the plateaus that we have that are created in the state funding program, and some of the district's ideas for how we'll address those in the future, or just even in the coming budget. So we really appreciate you sharing, forecasting that intent with us now, and appreciated the discussion. Thank you.
Ms. Kushner?
Thank you, and I appreciate the work, as we've done in several years, to smooth out the problems of the state salary schedule for educators and allow us to treat our educators with more professionalism for what they do, and to recognize, to me, the fragmentation, increasingly the fragmentation from the state level toward public education spending that is coming down, I think should be a concern to this board and all school boards, given that I think it's creating greater inefficiencies. I think we've shown that you can create stronger processes in a larger system, and the fragmentation is wasting taxpayer dollars. And I appreciate the fact that you and your team are doing your best to make sure that we're good stewards of taxpayer dollars, as well as respecting our staff and doing what we can to recruit and retain staff in this difficult time. Thank you. As well as address the needs of our students so that they have the resources they need to succeed. The further fragmentation and inefficiencies with these tax dollars that are outside LEAs like Wake County is very frustrating to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kushner. Any further comments, questions for Mr. Nieder? I have one comment. I know the answer to it, but I'm going to ask it just so it can be said in this, answered in this area. When can our staff expect these raises? And maybe this is better for Dr. Matillo, so maybe I'll ask it again. When will our staff see their pay scale change in their
Certainly, Chairman Haffey.
paycheck? There we go, I got it out.
Upon the board's approval of your next action item, staff can expect to receive compensation associated with the new approved 22-23 schedules in their September paycheck, as well as retroactive pay going back to July 1st, because for the period of the month of July and August, they received the old rate, but the amount of retro pay will bring them up to what they would have received.
And that's just a function of the state budget coming when it did?
Correct.
And luckily, we're not doing this in November, December?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Anything else? All right. Seeing none. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. All right. Passes. Thank you, Mr. Nieder. Our next is those salary schedule recommendations that I just could not wait to ask my question for. And that will be, are you staying with us, Mr. Nieder?
Yes, sir.
All
Or
right.
yes, ma'am.
All right, let's do it.
Okay. At your Finance Committee meeting on the 2nd, again, during the board work session today, staff reviewed recommendations for the 2022-23 staff compensation schedules, and tonight we're asking for your formal approval of them. I want to provide a few highlights of them. Our certified teaching and instructional support staff on Schedule A will see an average 4.7% compensation increase in 2023 compared to the prior year, 21-22. Principals will see a 4% compensation increase. Assistant principals on a percentage basis will mirror the teachers and instructional support staff on Schedule A, since their compensation is based on that schedule plus an additional 19%. Non-certified staff will move to a minimum hourly rate of $16 an hour, which is an increase over the current $15 an hour rate, and that's effective July 1st. The same step and grade differentials that were put into place to manage compression effectively on January of this year are maintained in these schedules, as well as a slight differential between the graded positions and the banded positions. There's a minimum increase being given to all non-certified staff of 4%. In many and perhaps most cases, it's higher. And finally, as I shared during your work session, and for perspective, the $16 per hour minimum hourly wage recommended for non-certified staff compares to a minimum rate as of June 30, 2021 of $11.80 an hour. Let me put that into context, though, as well. Not that improving something that was woefully below standard is a great thing. Anything but that, in my opinion. But the reason I bring that up is for the context that we have made significant strides in just 12 months of getting closer to where we need to be. There is much more work to do on behalf of both our non-certified staff, our certified staff, instructional support staff, school administrators, and every one of our 22,000 employees that supports our core business. Finally, and I've shared it, but I'll share it again, upon the board's approval tonight, staff is prepared to implement these increases on the September payroll, including retroactive pay back to July 1st. And with that, I'll ask the board's consideration of approval of these recommended 2022-23 salary schedules.
Chair Mahaffey, I'd
Yes,
like
Ms.
to make
Cash.
a motion to accept these salary schedule.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to accept the salary schedule recommendations that are before us for the current school year. Any questions or discussion? Yes, Ms. Carter.
Thank you for this work, and while it's not perfect, I truly appreciate it. And what I did was, so I was looking at, I know it's here comparing where we're going from last year, and I'm specifically looking at the classified or non-certified, because as y'all know, I came in as a special ed IA and actually can still access my electronic pay stub from them. And I actually just literally at the board table was looking at the difference at the step that I came in this board on in the monthly rate that I was receiving in November 2020, and then comparing it to now.
And for me, I just know what it was like to make what it was then. And I know there's other reasons people come and go, but I also know that pay is important for a lot of our staff. And, you have families and some that were working 2 and 3 jobs. I know them. I was one of them, and still am, actually. And, had to make the choice whether or not they could buy into health insurance for their families. And so I just, from a personal level, I know it's separate from, it does, to me, it's very powerful to see that difference, because I can go that little bit far back. And I fully support, I know the state had approved $15 an hour for all of its other employees, except for those in the school. So let's make that very clear, because I know we get a lot of heat for decisions that they didn't support. And I want, till now, and we're beating that. And I know that some that, that's going to cost us more money from other places, or we're having to cover it. Yes, it does, because we value all of our employees, from the cafeteria workers to the bus drivers to the IAs, data managers, you name it, teachers, assistant principals, and those here who are at central office that provide vital support to our in-school staff. So sorry, I got off on a tangent, but I do appreciate this work, and I'm very grateful to see it come to fruition, and also the quick turnaround so that our staff will have access to this extra funding, in my opinion, quickly. So I appreciate that, and all the staff who will be working, I'm assuming probably more than normal, to make sure that this happens for our staff. And it does mean a lot, and appreciate it. So sorry.
I think that was well said, Ms. Carter, and your personal experience with this, I think, just makes it hit home more for everyone. Anything else? All right. I don't think we can say anything else other than all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay? All right. Motion passes. Thank you, Mr. Nieder.
Thank you.
Up next, we have something that we kind of tabled from our last meeting, and that is the proposed updates to the 2022-2023 instructional calendars for the year-round schools. And so with us is Mr. Glenn Croza, Assistant Superintendent of School Choice Planning and Assignment. So this is looking at Election Day and Juneteenth being days off. Take it away, sir.
Chairman Haffey, members of the board, Superintendent Moore. Staff is bringing to you the instructional calendars for 22-23 for year-round schools only. If you remember, you had previously approved the calendars for the other schools. Staff is seeking your approval tonight. We're going to present some recommended changes, Election Day, Juneteenth, as well as adding 2 additional days to the end of the school year that are work days. So getting started. So during our last meeting, you had asked us to bring back 3 points of information for you, those being polling sites, information on instructional hours, and summer program remediation preliminary data. We had shared with you that it was still early. We only had preliminary data. So with that, polling sites, we grabbed information from November 8, 2018 till now. And based on that information, we were able to determine that each year our schools are used as polling sites roughly 2 to 4 times a year. Okay? A minimum of 1 school and a maximum of 77 schools are used during any one of those polling dates. To clarify, we've had several dates where there are polling dates where only 1 school was used as a polling site. We have several other ones on larger elections where 77 schools had been used. Mr. Hegarty and Ms. Kushner, you'd brought up information about year-round schools and their use as polling sites. Year-round schools were used 47% of the time. And the attendance, the total attendance at all of our schools was 1.5 million voters during this time period, since 2018, with 56% of those voters being at year-round schools, which is roughly like 850,000. So that's the information we shared with you. We're going to share with you about polling sites. Instructional hours. Dr. Martin, you had asked us to look at instructional hours. So General Statute 115C-84.2, quoting here, a minimum of 185 days or 1,025 hours of instruction covering at least 9 calendar months is required for schools. Year-round schools are scheduled for a minimum of 1,062 hours for the 2022-23 school year. Year-round schools will then have 7 hours of instruction remaining above the 1025 required. This is factoring in 3 bank days and 6 early release days at 2 hours each. Okay? I'm also sharing here General Statute 115C-84.3, which talks about remote instruction can be used during inclement weather. So moving on to summer program remediation, the preliminary data that we were able to find. So the total EOG assessments administered were over 9,300. That's approximately 800 to 900 per subject grade level. Reading grade 6 was the highest test that was administered at over 1,100. And the lowest test administered was grade 8 science at 64. And staff obviously can bring back additional information at your request as we learn more. So we hope that that information will meet your needs for information when determining the final recommendations that we're going to make tonight. So getting to our recommendations, we've made this recommendation for all other calendars, having Election Day, November 8th, 2022, non-school day for students. For year-round schools, because they would be the only ones affected by this, we're requesting that Juneteenth, June 19, that should be 2023, not 2022. I'm sorry for the mistake. We're requesting that June 19th be a day that students do not have school. Additionally, which we brought up during the last meeting, we're looking to end the school year on June 28th, and that should be 2023. We presented this during the last board meeting. Our option 1 that we had shared with you, which was our recommended option, was to use the October 10th teacher workday and one of our 3 bank days to cover the June 29th and June 30th school days, allowing us to end the school year on June 28th. We are proposing option 2 to use 2 bank days. This would then use up all 3 bank days that we had built into the calendar. However, year-round schools have 7 hours of additional instruction, which could be used as 1 bank day. Our recommendation for option 2 would allow schools and staff to keep the October 10th district-wide teacher workday. And then you also have 3 options that you can use if you have inclement weather. You can use the bank day. You have the ability to use Saturday school when you approve the board calendar. And then you also have General Statute 115C-84.3. So to recap, staff is asking for Election Day, Juneteenth, which is June 19th, June 29th, and June 30th. These all be days that students do not have school for the 2022-23 instructional calendar. With that, I'll open it up to any questions or concerns.
We have 2 options. If anybody wants to make a motion for option 1, which was the original recommendation, or option 2, which is the revised staff recommendation.
Chair Mahaffey, I'd move adoption of option 2 of the proposed updates to the 22-23 instructional calendar for year-round schools.
Okay. And a second from Ms. Scott. Thank you. Any questions, discussion?
I'll just repeat the comments that we made at the last meeting, that as the data bore out, right, our year-round schools are typically located in high-growth areas, areas with high populations, and so those are the ones that are going to get some of the largest voter turnouts. Looking at just the last off-year election, not even the presidential election, we had over 2,000 voters in the building at Parkside Elementary. 1,500 at Sycamore Creek Elementary, similar numbers at Carpenter, at Morrisville. I know this doesn't address every election down the pipeline in future calendars, but this is an important step. And since our last meeting, I've just continued to hear from more year-round parents about, their strong support for this proposal. So I don't know if anyone has any reservations about it. We discussed it thoroughly, I think, at the last meeting, but I'm firmly behind it and move its adoption.
Thank you.
Ms. Scott?
And it's a complex issue to begin with because of the lack of flexibility we have from the state with the start and end date of the school year. And operating the multi-track year-round calendar, which is necessary for both capacity, and we hear feedback from parents who do appreciate a year-round calendar. This has been an enormous, on top of what is usually an enormous lift. So I just want to express my gratitude to staff for looking at this and looking at this again. And, I know we continue to hear feedback from people that this would be ideal to have this day off and that day off, and encourage them to join our calendar committee so that they can share feedback. And again, this is the best we can do, and thank you to staff for being so persistent with this.
Ms. Carter?
Thank you for your work on this, and I will support the option 2, but y'all know I'm going to say it, that last bullet point, I have about remote instruction days. I do have concerns over the use of that, but I will support the use and how there, but I do still have a lot of reservations about using those days. Thank you.
And as I recall from previous conversations, that the superintendent would share any thoughts of using any of those days with the board first, correct?
So I appreciate keeping the district-wide teacher workday on the 10th. I think that's very important. We've heard so much positive feedback from district staff on those district-wide teacher workdays. We know that week of that election day happens is going to be a wonky week, but I think we've heard from many, many parents and teachers that they're okay with the initial wonkiness because of what it means to have election day off for students. So thank you for this. Any further comments or questions? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor of adopting option 2 for our year-round calendar for the 2022-2023 year, please say aye. Any opposed, nay? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you, and hopefully this will be the last time we bring instructional
right.
calendars for this year.
Don't jinx us. I'll now entertain a motion to enter closed session.
Chair Mahaffey, at this time, I would move that the board move into closed session to consider confidential personnel information protected under General Statute 143, 31811, A1, A3, and A6, to consult with the Board of Education attorney and preserve the attorney-client privilege as provided for under General Statute 143, 31811, and to formulate plans relating to the prevention of school violence and the development of emergency plans under North Carolina General Statute 143, 31811, A8. And finally, to consider confidential student information protected under General Statute 115C-402 and the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act, 20 United States Code 1232G.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
All right. We had a second from Dr. Martin and Ms. Johnson-Hostler. Ms. Allen, I trust you to take your pick. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? All right, we are now in closed session. Thank you all for joining us this evening.